Is our Q&A resource panel. We have all of our speakers today and then some extras as well. So type in your questions, and it's just going to be an open floor for everyone. So if we want to go around and maybe introduce ourselves.
Well, I am Leah Stanley. I am an author and a speaker, and I am here basically sort of like the resident caregiver. I am no longer in the caregiving role, but I have certainly had that position with my grandparents, taking care of them with the two types of dementia that they respectively had. So I have had quite a breadth of experience. I have dealt with the whole trying to get them into nursing home, Medicare, Medicaid, working with all of that. This is kind of frontline stuff that I did. And also working with some difficult family members. So I've had a breadth of experience in that area.
And Darian, I'm Charioty James. I'm an attorney with James and Parlange Law, and I've been practicing about 18 years, and probably 13 or 14 of those 18 years has been in the areas of estate planning and probate. And so I can field questions in any of those areas. And of course, we're located right here in Kingwood. So if anyone that's watching today has some very specific questions that they need answered that they really can't put on the forum, we're happy to talk to anyone after the program as well.
Lisa.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Lisa Milliken. I'm a speech language pathologist by background, but have been a healthcare educator and a corporate operations person for a healthcare company. I've worked mostly with long-term care, but I also work with home health, and I train healthcare providers, nurses, therapists, physical occupation speech therapists on caring for people of all ages, from neonatal babies, especially specializing in medication and counseling issues of children as well as adults, and lots of background training with dementia. I'm a certified dementia practitioner, written a lot of courses anyway. But I'm very passionate about helping caregivers and working with great groups like the people here that you see, because I've worked with caregivers for the last 32 years. And I've seen a range of issues that people have to deal with, and no two situations are alike. So I'm happy to be here.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Rudy De Los Santos, and I'm a licensed social worker currently in retirement. I work for the Texas Department of Health. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Yes. All right, so I've worked for the Texas Department of Health for many years. I also worked, my last job was at the Harris Health System, where I worked both inpatient and outpatient in clinical settings. The outpatient was where I got to work with, seniors, a lot of them who were seeking information just on benefits. And as a social worker, that's what basically we do. We link up clients to benefits in the community, so we have resource information. And so I'll be sharing. Oh, also, I'm a senior. I'm 73, and so I'm already on Medicare and have some information on that area.
All right. And it looks like we do have a question, and we might have one more presenter speaker coming in. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime,
right.
We'll just throw this question out to everyone. Are there different psychological impacts of caring for a spouse, first parent, or other?
Oh, that's a very good question for pastor and psychologist Maz, but I'll share a little bit. I have worked with several people who are my clients that had differences in the spouse versus a parent. There's a very different relationship, as you can imagine. And then you have to take on a kind of third-party relationship when it's a spouse versus a parent, or even a child or a brother or sister. It's all very, very different. When you're working with a spouse, it's different. It's harder to separate yourself from being a caregiver versus being the spouse. and serving in both of those roles, knowing that you promise to always love and protect and take care of them, but you've now taken on a new role. You want to do what's best. And sometimes you also have a new discord, and it's a struggle. It can become a battle when they feel that you are overriding their wishes as a spouse, but you're also trying to protect them based on everything that you know. We'll see if maybe somebody else has some feedback as well. Maybe if we could get the pastor and psychologist to respond as well.
I think the relationship does make a difference in how you will approach caring for the individual, or in my case, individuals, because I had two people at the same time. I think that I would definitely handle taking care of my husband differently than I handled taking care of my grandparents. Like Lisa said, because the relationship is different, the nature of that relationship is different. So I think, and that's another reason, it's like, if you're looking for the person that's going to be your caregiver, I always emphasize, find someone that you get along with, find someone you can trust, find someone that you feel comfortable with, because they're going to be making some pretty epic choices for you and going through some things for you. So I think the relationship is key. I think that you need someone in that role that you absolutely trust, literally with your life, because that's what's going on.
Oh, 1 second, Charity. Trying to keep some people muted to help with the echoing.
Perfect. Okay. This is a little bit ancillary to the question that was asked, but it's just an important note. From a legal standpoint, the court looks at those roles differently. If we have a spouse that's coming in to get a guardianship, for instance, that spouse is going to probably be looked at as a community administrator rather than a guardian. So the spouse will have more freedom and more leeway to be able to handle things in a guardianship setting than, say, a child would for their elderly parent.
Great answers. We have got another question, and this one I think is for Charity. Does estate planning and probate laws Charity spoke about earlier vary much in other states?
They do. And I'm not abreast of all the laws in all the other states, but I'll give you one really good example. Nevada had a probate law where they actually take a percentage of your estate as part of the probate. And again, don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert in Nevada law by any stretch of the imagination, but it becomes much more relevant to look into trust and things of that nature here, whereas Texas has very, very good probate laws. Texas offers alternatives to probate. It's designed to be very economic and very efficient. So the short answer is yes, they can differ greatly. I wouldn't want to be in California trying to do a probate or Florida trying to do a probate. I would much rather be in Texas because our probate laws are just much better, I think.
I want to add something. We moved to Louisiana for a few years from Texas, and our will did not hold up in Louisiana because they have Napoleonic law, very different than Texas law. So we had to have a different will. When we moved back to Texas, we had to start over. So we learned that like they have a whole different set of rules there than we do here, and that's exactly what Charity is saying.
Yes, and I actually graduated law school in Loyola in New Orleans. And so you're exactly right. Louisiana is the only state in the union that's under the old Napoleonic Code. So you're going to see vastly different laws in real estate and probate, which they actually call it succession there. Mm-hmm. And so the good rule of thumb is if you move to a different state, have your documents reviewed by an attorney there. If you're transplanting into Texas, it is very, very important to have an attorney look at your documents that you have from your former state to make sure they are compliant with the laws in Texas. Because, I mean, even if the will is found to be valid and it works, it could have defects that cause the probate to be more expensive or more difficult than it has to be. So definitely have someone review those documents.
Great. And then another question, practically and legally, what can be done when third parties take advantage of my person via phone or door-to-door sales?
Okay, from a legal standpoint, that's a hard question. And I'm just going to be honest here, Darian. I see a lot of times I will have people call in or come into my office and they will say, my elderly mother has some people that have been calling her and she's been transferring money to them. And I see it, unfortunately, regularly. And this really becomes somewhat of a gray area. And the reason why is in the state of Texas, it's very difficult to take someone's rights away to make decisions for themselves. So if that person has not been deemed to be incompetent or has not been deemed to be incapacitated in any way, it's very hard to step in and try to protect them, because you're in a situation where you can't commandeer their bank account. You can't stop them from communicating with other people. And so that's really where you are pulling on your support circle, your people in your family, in your church, in your life that can try to help you persuade that person to recognize that they're being taken advantage of, or to try to do outside the box engagement that can help that person. It may be that they need more people to sit with them and come and check on them during the day and monitor the phone calls that are coming in and the emails that are going out. Maybe they're making trips to the bank and you need to go in and alert the bank, hey, someone's taking advantage of my mother here. Can you give us an alert or call someone if you see her taking out big sums of money? Now, if the person has been deemed to be incapacitated and you're operating under a power.
Oh, I think we lost her again.
Okay. Hear me, Darian? Am I back?
Yes.
Okay.
Back.
So if you're operating under that power of attorney, you're going to have a lot more authority to be able to step in. And it's very, very fact sensitive. I mean, I could sit here and pontificate on all the possible scenarios that could be happening. But again, just know what your power is in that document. Read that document. If you don't understand it, ask someone that knows. Go to your attorney that drafted it. Call us. You are not empowered if you do not know the power that you have. And so what we would do is see, okay, what's the fact scenario here? What's going on? And what authority do you have in that power of attorney as the agent to be able to circumvent what's going on here? And if you're in a setting where you do not have, the person is incapacitated and you do not have the authority of a power of attorney because that incapacitated person never executed that power of attorney, in that scenario, you need to get a guardianship and you need to get it quickly. A guardianship will allow you to be able to take control of those assets and protect them, and to be able to take control of the person and protect them.
I think that's some really great advice.
Can I add something to that? I've been in clients' homes before where they're getting calls, or their daughters or spouses are telling me that when they leave, their spouse or their mom or whoever's getting those calls from solicitors. And something that's very helpful, back to Charity's first point, if you don't have that power of attorney and they have the rights to make their own decisions, something that has been very helpful for those people is to train those certain people. If you don't know the person that's calling, you look on your phone and you look on, who's coming in, do not answer it. That has become very helpful. I was staying with this one lady so that her, just as a favor, she had cancer, she had end-stage cancer. Her husband needed to go to the grocery store. She got several calls while I was there. And it was people, because she was a diabetic, trying to get her to commit to sending all these supplies, and they'd bill Medicare on her behalf. Mm-hmm. that was her least concern. She had all of her medical supplies. She was trying to tell them, I watched her, I tried not to take over. She was trying to tell them, I'm trying to deal with my cancer first. They would not hang up. The only thing that made them finally hang up is when she said, I don't have Medicare because I'm not 65 yet. She was only 60 years old, and they immediately hung up. But I'm thinking, how many calls do they get? And so if, some people, they're not all late stage dementia where they just agree to everything. Many of them can learn the process of not answering the call, not answering the door. It's very, very helpful for families, and it gives them comfort as well.
That's great. Lisa, can I follow up 1 second, Darian? I always tell people, let local law enforcement know. It's very difficult for them to actually be able to investigate, narrow down who's doing it, because it could be people from other countries. And that's what I see a lot, is it's people from other countries. But what it does is the more people that report these things, the more educated law enforcement is going to become, because they know that it's a widespread problem. And that whole idea of community, people coming together as community, there is a better possibility that there's going to be some remedy out there if they know that it's a widespread problem. So do please let law enforcement know if you have someone that's contacting your loved one in that manner.
Yeah, very important advice. I think Rudy has something to add.
211 is most major metropolitan cities have a 211 number. You can always reach out and just ask for assistance, that you're getting all these robocalls, and they could pretty much link you or give you additional information and numbers to call to get yourself on a do not call list. So that's also some good information to have.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then it looks like someone wants to ask a video question. So we're going to let her in real quick. We'll see how this works. While we're waiting, I guess, a question, excuse me. We have here's Kathy.
Hi. Can y'all see me?
Yes, we can.
What is compassionate allowance from Social Security?
Compassion allowance from Social Security.
Yes, I read about that and I was like, what is that?
That's the new one on me. I'm not, okay, now, are you taking care of a family member or?
My husband. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Social Security, I think that the Medicare program has benefits that you can reach out to and apply for. A lot depends on, are you looking for a caregiver or?
I just wondered what it was. I've never heard that term, and a book I was reading said that now you can get compassion allowance, and I haven't researched it yet, and I just wondered if y'all knew anything about it.
Okay, Medicare they have a booklet called Medicare and You, 2020. Looks something like this.
Yes, we have that one.
Okay, but the new one, 2021, has not come out yet.
But this was from Social Security.
Can I add something? I just looked it up. It says it's a way to quickly identify diseases and other medical conditions that by definition meet the Social Security standards for disability benefits. It includes usually certain cancers, adult brain disorders, and a number of rare disorders that affect children per the guidelines of Social Security. That is compassionate allowances. There's a whole website on the Social Security government site about what's applicable, who can benefit from it, and how to apply for it.
Okay, great. Thank you. How do I back out of here?
I'll get you. Just 1 second.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. All right. We're going to introduce Ryan really quick, if he's ready to go. I think he is. He's going to be another one of our panelists. While he's getting ready, I think we had a couple more questions. We'll take a look at those. Gary asks, Lisa, do you have a book which reflects what you shared?
I do not. Maybe I should write one of those. I teach a lot of conferences, so I do a ton of research on this topic. I teach courses on burnout for the healthcare professional, as well as compassion fatigue and reducing stress for caregivers, as well as the importance of reducing stress for the client, the patient themselves, because that can limit their progression with medical treatment if they are under a great deal of stress. So it applies to a lot of levels. There is a lot of research, though, that I reference.
And let's see. Mike says the Houston Police Department Mental Health Division has experts in dealing with the elders being exploited. So that's just another little thing to add. Let's see. Does anyone know of a way that caregivers can connect and talk with other caregivers?
I usually go back to the care partners. There's great support groups where you can talk to another caregiver. And, you know, I found when I'm working with children, for instance, that if you have a child with a rare brain disease, there's groups of parents who only have children with that rare brain disease. That's true for adults with diabetes. That's true for certainly dementia. There's a lot of groups for dementia, Alzheimer's. But you can look up the specific type of disorder that your loved one has, and there is a care group of people providing care for those people with that specific thing. You know, you're not living with a spouse who's had a stroke and having to join a dementia group. You know, you can find it very specific.
And we are going to take the time to introduce Ryan real quick. Ryan, will you introduce yourself? Oh, and it doesn't seem like we can hear you. Thanks, everyone, for bearing with us with some of these little technical glitches. Online can be a great tool, but it can also be a little challenging sometimes. While we're trying to figure that out, we will look at another question. Oh, Mike says the Alzheimer's Association has a men's support group. And as Lisa was saying, I work for Care Partners. We're a nonprofit in Houston. We provide support, education, and resources to family caregivers. All of our services are free, and we're doing a lot of online resources right now. You can visit our website, and we have a support group, so that we're doing that twice a week on Zoom. And we also have some programs for people who have Alzheimer's, your loved ones, and we're also doing just a ton of online education. So this is part of our educational series, and just our whole website has a ton of online things. So,
and Darian, I'm starting to see more and more people be proactive in churches and local organizations. So I would encourage you, if you're having trouble finding a support group, go to your local church or some of your local organizations and start one. There are resources out there, and a lot of times it just needs that little push in your particular church or whatever to kind of shed some light on it. Because if you're wondering, hey, is there a support group out there? There's probably 10 other people in your circle that's wondering the same thing, and nobody's saying anything about it, so you don't know. So take that initiative to get something started where you are if there isn't anything there.
I agree. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Ryan. Welcome.
Look at that. All right. Hey, guys, my name is Ryan Peters. This is my wife, Rochelle. Hi. And we run, well, talk about church. We're pastors. We pastor a church, but we also own a agency and brokerage for Medicare health and life insurance. So anything from Medicare supplements to Medicare Advantage, long-term care, etc. We help those who are in need get the coverage that's necessary.
Great. So if anyone has questions relating to any of that, be sure to type them in the chat, or like how earlier we had someone request to do a video, you can do that as well. So we'll take it back to the chat. I think I had a question for Rudy. What's the biggest things to look out for with Medicare and Medicaid when looking for help with caring for someone?
For caring for someone? Well, okay, can give me a specific. For Medicare, looking for someone, Pastor Mass mentioned earlier caregivers. And for right now, for the most part, his family's they're taking care of him. We'd get to a point where you're looking for, let's say, for example, a nursing home. He didn't allude to that, but many times it becomes, necessary to look to nursing home placement for a family member. At that point, you need to consider services through the state, through the Medicaid program, which provides those services. And usually you have to reach out and apply online or seek assistance through the area agency on agency for that. Beyond that, there are services to the state for caregivers, a home provider, if you will. Medicare per se does not provide a home health aid unless you have you have skilled nursing, and that usually when you have somebody with PT, OT, and those kinds of services that you bring into a home situation when a person or a client is not able to go into the community, for instance. So those are the things that come up with, like regarding nursing home services to the state when you apply for them, and home health services through state agencies.
If I could just add to that, it's very important that you start thinking of these things at a young age. And Leah has talked about this for a long time. And, it's never too young to begin planning for this, because the worst thing you can do is wait till you're 65, 70 and say, wait a minute, I want to look at what can I do to protect my assets. And by that time, to sign up for a long-term care policy, the rates are going to be astronomical and extremely expensive. So it's never too late to start looking. And then also, like Rudy, like you're saying, begin to look at where do you qualify within that Medicare, Medicaid, line of benefits, because maybe you do qualify for some assistance and some aid in that, and so it's not everything out of your pocket. So it's very wise to partner with those experts to make sure you're making the right decision.
And also to add to that, Ryan, it's a process. It's not something. Some of the things that I've experienced in our own family and also with people from our church community is that sometimes I'll get a call and say, well, I have a family member. We're trying to seek help through the state, but it's a process. And that's something that's overnight. You have to look into resources, assets, and that kind of thing. And it takes a while. And meanwhile, the caregiver or family, if you will, is having to bear the brunt as far as the finances incurred.
I would agree with that, because that's what happened in our situation with my grandparents. I was 29 years old. They knew that I was the person that was going to have to take care of them. So they prepared their documents ahead of time because they knew they were significantly older than I was. They didn't want to wind up in a situation where the bottom would fall out and all of a sudden Leah was going to have to do something. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened with my grandparents. They were found 2 hours from home on the side of the road in a wrecked car. And it was, if I had not had those documents in place ahead of time, it would have been horrible. I don't think there would have been any recovering from it throughout the rest of their lives. But as it was, I had everything I needed to step in and take, it sounds horrible to say, take control of the situation, but for their good, in order to help them so they weren't just left. And that I agree with that. Rudy is so right. It is a process, and you need to begin it earlier rather than later. Do not wait till the last minute and think, oh, we'll get it together later. Yeah. Don't do that. I'm sure, Charity, you can talk to that. People wait. They don't want to make a will because they're afraid it means they're going to die or something. I'm not trying to mock people, but people do get these notions in their minds, and it's like, please push past that, because it is so much better if you do that.
It is. I can't tell you the number of times that we've had to go into a hospital to execute documents for someone, and I'll be wearing a suit, and I will walk through the waiting room, the ICU waiting room, and I'll have 2 or 3 people come up to me and say, I'm trying to talk to my husband's disability. I'm the company that has their disability insurance, and they won't talk to me. Can you please let me prepare a power of attorney so my husband can sign it? And unfortunately, most of the time, I have to say, he doesn't have capacity to sign. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to get a guardianship to be able to handle those kinds of things. And so you have to take the initiative to empower somebody to advocate for you when the time comes. I mean, you have to do it. And it is hard a lot of times for people. They come in and thinking of their own mortality and them not being able to do things on their own. That's a big step. I mean, it's a big step. But if you could look through my eyes or the eyes of some of the other people on this panel to see what happens when you do not, there would be no.
I think we lost her again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Anything else?
there she is.
So the word of the day is proactive. Be proactive. That's the bottom line.
And to add to that, Charity, I'm glad you touched on advanced directives. There's so many people I know in our church group, in my personal family, who have not dealt with direct advanced directives or anything. And they're thinking, well, I'll take care of this tomorrow, but tomorrow, you never know what happens. Right. Just as an example, early on when my parents, they were aging, I sat down and talked to them in just a conversation at the dinner table, and I began asking questions. What would you want us to do in the event that X happened to you? And of course, for them as well, nothing's going to happen. I said, I know, but let's just suppose that it did. Well, we went ahead and did the advanced directives and the DNR. It so happened that back in 2013, my mom was in a hospital. She was there for bilateral pneumonia. And then she coded. Then the doctors were going to do CPR. And of course, I said, we have the document. So happened that my brother, who was there with me in the hospital, had a copy of the directive in this glove compartment. So they stopped the procedure. Because my mom was 86, very frail and thin. And imagine if they did the compressions, the problems associated with that. So again, a word to the wise, don't delay, take care of those forms. They're not difficult to do. You can get an attorney or just, there's websites you can download the information, but just do it.
I want to go back to Darian. Was the original question how to apply for Medicaid and Medicare, or what was the specific question?
It was, what's the biggest things to look out for with Medicare and Medicaid when looking for help with caring for someone?
I also wanted to say, kind of know the rules of what to look out for. Know that Medicaid is state specific, Medicare is federal specific. You can qualify for Medicare Part A, which is hospitalization, when you turn 65 or you've been disabled for 2 years, and that is free once you sign up for it, and that's hospitalization. Part B is a premium that you'll be paying if you don't have another type of insurance. Medicaid is state specific, very specific for every state. Texas actually has a better Medicaid system than a lot of states I've worked with, and that Medicaid ranges for children and, a children's insurance program up to the actual bed of a nursing home, not the other therapies or anything, but the actual bed, room and board. So there's a lot of specific criteria. If you're younger and you've been disabled for more than 2 years with a qualifying disability that's documented by your physician, you can go ahead and apply for Medicaid services based on that disability. But just knowing those rules in your state, wherever you are, I know we have different people from different states here. Just know that Medicaid is state specific. Learn what those rules are, and Medicare is federal.
Right. And also to add to that, Lisa, the Medicare enrollment period begins October the 15th to December the 7th.
Yes.
And people who are 65 and over, such as myself, I'm already on a managed care plan. There's Medicare, traditional Medicare, which allows you to go to any physician or care practitioner who accepts a payment for Medicare. The Medicare is more of a bundled package as an A for hospitalization, the B for outpatient procedures, doctors' visits, mental health, etc. Plus, he also has some other routine dental, eye, vision, and in my case, I have access to a gym. But the restrictions with that is it's a set of practitioners, providers, insurance, if you will, who limit your access. So you're in a pool of doctors and you can only access them. If you go out of network, you have to pay additional monies. For me, I don't have that many medical problems, so a Medicare Advantage plan is okay with me. I have a 5-star plan. They're all rated. Mine is a 5-star plan. And again, then you have the traditional Medicare. With that, a lot of people ask, what's the difference? Well, with Medicare, you can go to any doctor and anybody will accept treatment payment for that. So anyway, that's just to add to what Lisa was talking about.
And Rudy, just on top of that, obviously if you go the original Medicare route, that's only going to cover 80% of the cost. Mm-hmm. And traditionally, you'll pick up a Medicare supplement plan if you're looking into original Medicare that will have a monthly fee. Typically, I'll just say typically, depending on your health and when you're starting out, anywhere from $79 to $150 a month. But those plans outside of a small deductible per year, less than $200 usually, will cover 100% of the rest of the costs. So it's very, very wise to not just jump into one or the other, or to make a quick decision when you're getting into that age of moving out of your group policy employer plan and into Medicare, because it's a very important decision that you make, because that first choice is kind of your free enrollment period. So when you're just moving off of employer or group insurance and into Medicare, there's no medical background check. So if you wanted to get into a Medicare supplement plan, you're not going to have a background check on your medical history. It's that free enrollment period. Whereas the Medicare Advantage, they will always take you now as of 2021. Before, if you had end-stage renal disease, yes, there was restrictions, but as of 2021, there's no more restrictions on that. So you really want to look at your health, see where you are. If you're Rudy, he'll be pushing 120 years old and no issues. Medicare Advantage is perfect. He'll have very low costs. But if you foresee yourself having some high Medicare costs or medical costs with surgeries and such in the future, you may want to look at spending that little extra money a month and get a supplement plan that will cover the rest, because they're guaranteed renewable every year as long as you don't change. And then that open enrollment period that you talked about, or annual enrollment period, Rudy, from October 15th to December 7th, really only applies for Medicare Advantage plans. If you're in a supplement plan, you can change any time of the year. So if you had a plan for 2 years and you're paying $190, and you look and you see Mutual of Omaha has a plan for $140 in May, you can change with no restrictions, other than you may have to go through underwriting. So a lot of information to really make sure you're making the right decision for you and your family.
Exactly. So I want to add a few other things, and this is just because I've worked with hundreds of clients. I've heard all the stories, and even my husband, and different people in different plans. One is for Medicare. If you're hospitalized and if you have Medicare Part A, if you are not moved up to the tower, so to speak, and admitted to the hospital, Medicare Part A may not pay. If they put you under what's called observation, it's usually on the first floor, then you may not get the same Medicare Part A benefits. And if you go to a nursing home and they say, oh, Medicare Part A will pay for you as long as will pay your services for a few weeks as long as you qualify, as long as you were in the hospital for 3 midnights. Well, if one of those or two of those, if it was at 3 in the tower, in the major part of the hospital, admitted to the hospital, not in observation, you're not going to have Medicare Part A services paid. So make sure you're aware of that, because you're going to have, you're going to be back out of pocket when you go back to the nursing home in a private pay situation. The other thing is, I love the supplements, by the way. I've heard many spouses before they die tell their husband or wife, make sure you never stop paying your supplement, because it will take care of you. I've heard many husbands tell their wife that. If you go with an alternative plan to Medicare, you give up your Medicare rights and go to an alternative. And I'm just saying this from a family perspective, that I've worked with so many families. Make sure you ask the question. So if you're healthy, you may get a super low rate or almost no payment out of pocket, some basic medications. But ask them, will this pay for my rehab if I have a stroke? Will this pay for my therapy or my x-rays or my blood work or whatever if I go into a major rehab center or nursing home? Some of them will not. And I have seen patients that went to one of the cheaper plans, which was great because they had super low med costs, but they had a full stroke and they went to rehab and they were told, we could get you back to regular walking, talking, eating again, but we only get 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week with you. And they laid in the bed for the rest of their life because they didn't have the plan that would cover. So just ask all the questions. Again, I always go back to be educated. Ryan has a lot of answers for all of the different plans. He's probably seen them and knows the rates and knows what he would recommend. Certainly Rudy knows all of that too. But I've seen so many clients and families who just assume their Medicare Part A would pay, or they assume their other Medicare replacement plan would provide everything that they needed, and it did not.
And plan, yeah, Lisa, to add to that, what is happening? I know you're more involved with the plan since you're a broker. What's happening with the Medicare Part F? That's one of the plans. Brian?
Yeah, so Plan F is gone unless you're grandfathered in. And people like the Plan F because it included the Part B deductible. But the next plan down is your Plan G, right? And that's the plan I recommend if people are looking for, the grade A coverage, right, from a supplement plan, because you're just going to have your Part B deductible once a year. And once that's taken up, and like I said, it was $195. 195 deductible per year. Once you hit that, they basically cover everything else. And then obviously you get into, like you said, the nursing home and how many days you have to be in before it's covered. But you really want to look into that and the different plans and what you have available to you. But be very careful, like Lisa said, don't just jump into a Plan N because, well, it's $25 a month or $35 a month. And Medicare supplements cover everything, because that's not true. It all depends on the plan that you have. So it's very wise to sit down and go over what's best for you, what's best for your family. And like I said, if you're healthy and you have a healthy line of family, maybe Medicare Advantage is the right path for you. There's Medicare Advantage plans that include your Part D, your prescription drug plan. And when you go into original Medicare and a Medicare supplement, that Medicare or that prescription drug plan is separate. So you got to remember that not only are you going to pay $100 a month for your supplement, you're also going to have a $20 to $30 a month for your Part D, depending on the plan that you get. But when you look at the grand scheme, $20 to $30 a month, if you've got $600, $800 a month in prescriptions, it's well worth it. And you want to make sure you have that, because if you don't sign up for them, then there's penalties later on if you don't
10%
when you are eligible. So it's really wise, and for the person that asked the question, you got a full seminar just for you tonight. If that's you, sit down with an expert and go over your options. I can't stress that enough. Our government and our media does not do a good job of informing and educating our seniors or those walking into this stage of life. So sit down with an expert and make sure you're making the right decisions.
That's very
I want
important.
to get to a couple of other questions real quick before we're coming close to running out of time. So I want to make sure we get to some other questions. Back to Lisa. Is there an outline that you're willing to share for your presentation?
Absolutely. I can send that to you, Darian, and maybe you could upload it. Sure.
So we'll get that up later today. So be sure to check back.
And I may just have a PowerPoint that is related to this. I may send that to you, and that way it would have all of the details rather than a outline.
And Richard says, don't forget the gathering place offered in churches around town. Back to the free resources, back to Care Partners. That's another program that we have. During COVID, though, all of our in-person programming is suspended. It's on hold. But we're offering all those online resources, including the gathering at your place, which is once a week. We do a Zoom gathering place. So it has all the fun activities. We get music, exercise, and some entertainment. It's just a fun little 45 minutes. So you can find information about that on our website, thecarepartnerstexas.org.
Can I say something about the gathering?
Yeah, real quick.
Once it started, I just can't stress this enough. I tell people all over Houston, but I'm sure there's Care Partners in other places as well, in Texas and other places. This is the most amazing resource because it's free. And for those, I'm just so passionate about being an advocate for not only the patient, but the caregiver, for you. You can drop your loved one off at 10 in the morning and pick them up at 1 and know that they are assigned a one-on-one buddy, sometimes 2 buddies, who have been trained. A lot of them have dementia. Some have had a stroke. Some have had hip surgery. They can't walk anymore. But I mean, Darian can tell you all about that. But it gives you 4 hours of a break with trained people. And these people, I see their faces light up. They love it so much. They dance, they sing, they do crafts, whether they're super low level or very high level. It's an amazing, amazing group. I volunteer with that group. It's an amazing opportunity through Care Partners.
Thank you. Yes, I love our programs personally. I love just the relationships and everything that comes from it too. All right. Well, we'll stay on track with the question. Sorry. Yes.
I said, do you have one for children? I'll drop mine off.
Yeah.
All right. Another. Let's see. Here's a question about POAs. I'm my 86-year-old mom's caregiver for the last 4 years. I live with her and I have 5 siblings. I don't have a POA, however. I make most of the decisions. How important is that POA?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I'm going to tell you, you will run into some scenario where they're going to say you don't have the authority to act. And it is, and did you say, Darian, is there any capacity issue there in the question?
It doesn't say. She just says that she's her mom's caregiver.
Okay. If mom still has the capacity to execute that power of attorney, do it. Do it now, because it is going to be a document that 99% sure you will have to utilize it at some point. And if mom loses capacity, it's not an option for you anymore. And that's what kicks you into that guardianship setting. And if you can avoid a guardianship, avoid it. You don't want to have to be in that scenario, because it is going to be court involvement. There are third parties that are involved. Court investigators are involved. It's very expensive. Get that POA. It's critical.
She says, she just typed in again, my mom is unable to make decisions. So do you have any suggestions?
Okay. If she does not have capacity to be able to execute a power of attorney, come in, talk to me. Let me see exactly what the scenario is. What assets does mom still have in her name?
Oh. Keeps doing that when she's talking, right in the middle. Here we go.
There may be some other things that we can try to do to help before you have to actually start a guardianship process. So come in now and so that we can catch what we can and help you where we can before you get to that guardianship scenario.
Great. The next question is going to be, is it true that if you don't sign up for Medicare Part B when you originally signed up, that you'll have to pay a penalty along with your monthly payment?
There's a 10% penalty every year that you are eligible for Part B and do not join and subscribe.
And also depending on your income, the state can help assist. I know when I was working in the clinic, there were a lot of patients who came to me for whatever reason, their income, their check was not sufficient, and they opted out of Part B Medicare. Yeah. The premium. And so the state can assist paying those premiums. They have programs called Q&B, Qualified Medicare Beneficiary, SL&B, Specified Low-Income Beneficiary, the QI1, and such. But you do have to reach out to the state and also apply it online. Or you can also contact the Area Agency on Aging, which is very beneficial. It's very helpful when you don't have any information on that, and they can guide you in that process. Not only that, I think, Ryan, do you also lend assistance with those services? Yeah, we do. And if we don't have the answer, we'll point them in the right direction. Obviously, every state has their SHIP office. Right. But a lot of those questions we can answer. And another thing that people often don't understand about that Part B is the aspect that your premium depends on how much your income was before you retired. And so the standard up to $174,000 if you were married and filed jointly is $144 a month. But if you made, if you're bringing home $750,000 a year, your premium's almost $500 a month. So it's very important to understand that your income level will determine that Part B premium. Yeah, incidentally, the Part B premium in 2020 is $144.60. It was $135.50. Yep. It comes out of my check automatically, so I really don't know what they take out, but yeah, that is the amount. And also to add to that, a couple of years ago, my wife had a house that she came into. It was willed to her, and it boosted our income way up there. And so for 1 year, Medicare penalized, and we were paying $188 per person until that year was over. So yeah, they do penalize you based on your income. Yep, exactly.
All right. Real quick, I want to make sure we get this in before we end. I want to mention our sponsors again, the All's Authors. Maybe have Leah talk about them in just a minute, but also wanted to mention that all of the videos from today and more will be available on YouTube. The Empowering the Caregiver on YouTube. I want to make sure I get that right, so I'm checking it real quick. It's going to be Empowering the Caregiver. Yep, on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe because there's going to be more videos, I believe, coming out all year, and next year and everything, we will continue to update it. So just check that out for more resources. The replays will also be available on this website. I'm going to get that updated this afternoon. Leah, do you want to talk about that? Or hold on, let me get to this last question. Let's see. So this person says, I'm the sole caregiver for my mother whose short-term memory is almost non-existent. I've gone to yourtexasbenefits.com. And submitted an application to determine what benefits might be available, twice for my mother and twice for myself as her caregiver. Both times the application was canceled by the system. Also, before COVID, I went to the Texas Department of Health and Human Services in person and completed paper forms, but it too fell into a black hole. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I would call the office, call your SHIP office, call the Department of Insurance. They should have that documentation and or lead you in the right direction. We've had to chase files and everything else that just fell into nowhere as well. And it can be frustrating because you're looking for a service that's supposed to be available to you. But, have a little bit of patience. But I would definitely call and ask for, copies of everything. Make sure you send to the right department. Get those phone numbers right when you call. It's something so simple, but it'll save you a lot of time if you get the numbers to where you're going to prior to being forwarded, that we don't have to go and wait in line for another 3 hours.
Oh, 1 second, Rudy. All right, now we can hear you.
All right, good. Okay, you can also reach out to the area Houston chapter area agency on agency. They have a lot of information. They can also, but just like Ryan said, many times, and it does happen, especially now with this whole COVID thing going on right now. There are long waiting lines, and there's how do I say it, less staff, I guess, to process these claims, and so just be, as Ryan said, very patient. But again, the area agency on aging, their phone number, you having something to write with, is 832-393-4301. And again, it's 832-393-4301. You can also reach out to 211 Texas, because they're also one of the lead agencies. They take a lot of the information, and they might be able to further assist you with that.
Great. And then I think this might be the last question. Then I want to let everyone share their contact information one more time, because there was a couple of people who were saying they want to get with you guys later. So we'll let everyone talk about that one more time before we get off. But here's the last question. My mother enrolled in Medicare late and is paying the 10% penalty. Is there any way to eliminate the penalty?
There is not.
Sadly, there's none. I have a brother-in-law who did the same thing, and he's got to pay that until, well, forever.
All right. And then, so I guess we'll start with Leah. Do you want to just share how to get in contact with you one more time? And if you want to talk about the authors.
Definitely. I have a website as an author and speaker, leahstanley.com, and you can reach me that way. The Alz authors, I'm very passionate about this group because of what they do. I say they, I'm actually one of them. I'm one of the authors. It's a group of more than 250 authors. Each one has had a personal experience with caregiving, and they have chosen to write a book about it. So if you go to alzauthors.com, you can see, you'll have access to every book that is in the Alz Authors collection. And what that will do is give you a whole range of looking for your specific situation. Are you caring for a spouse? Are you caring for a parent? Are you caring for a grandparent or perhaps someone else? Do you have a child who has questions about why their grandma acts the way she does? They have ranges of books that talk about all of these things, different authors that have gone through different scenarios, different experiences, and each one is sharing. It's very personal. So as you read the stories, you're walking the journey out with them, and you can see what they did to help them navigate and see the mistakes they made, because they're very candid. We've all of us, as we've written our books, we've tried to be very open, very honest. It's not a pretty process. The whole concept of caregiving, we'd all love to think it's a Hallmark special where we're all sitting around smiling all the time, and that's just not reality. No. So it's important to be able to see the real situation there. The Alz Authors has been put together. These are not doctors. They're not attorneys. These are just real people that have lived it out. Several of them have actually made videos, which will be on you can access them through the empoweringthecaregiver.com site, and they will be being downloaded throughout the day. It will be actually in connection with the YouTube channel that's got that same name, and you'll have to subscribe. But some of these Alz authors have actually put together videos for this conference where they are talking about tips that got them through the really difficult times and things that really helped them navigate this whole deal of caregiving. Because when you become a caregiver, as you know, suddenly everyone expects you to be an expert in everything. You're supposed to know all the legal stuff. You're supposed to know all the medical stuff. You're supposed to know everything that we should expect. If I'm the family member, I'm looking at you demanding, tell me what's happening. I'm telling you, I went into that role and I knew nothing. I consider me Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing. I had to learn on the fly. I had to learn as I went. And so hopefully some of these videos that the ALS authors have put together will give you some tips and information that will help you where you are.
And Lisa, how can we get in contact with you?
A couple of ways. My LinkedIn contact is Lisa Young Milliken. You can look me up there, send me a message. Sometimes that's the easiest. Or my email is lmilliken, Milliken, 2021 @gmail.com.
And Rudy?
Okay, I'm retired, so I have plenty of time. I'm doing nothing here at home other than volunteering whenever it's available. I'm at, well, my last name is long, De Los Santos. Can I just give a phone number? Would that be?
Yeah, that should work. However you want to do it. And that should work.
All right. Okay, it's 832-729-4194. I can receive texts and messaging, and usually that's like the way I do. Even at our church, somebody, I'll just give them my phone number, and they can reach out for me just a one-on-one kind of thing. I work better that way. Okay.
Great. And Ryan, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so we run Epic Senior Solutions, and you can reach us at epicsenior-solutions.com. That's with 2 C's. Or you can contact me personally at 832-840-9532 or by email at ryan@epicsenior-solutions.com.
Great. And Charioty?
So I'm the managing partner at James and Parlange Law, and that last name is Parlange. So James and Parlange Law, you can look us up on www.jparlaw.com, or you can Google us and we'll come up. My phone number is 281-358-8836.
Great. And just a reminder, I am Darian Jones with Care Partners, and you can find us at www.carepartnerstexas.org. Or I'm just going to make sure I get the phone number right, 713-682-5995. Like I said, we have a ton of online resources right now, and we can't wait to get back to our normal programming where we have all of our in-person events and programs, and it's just a great resource for caregivers. So we'd love to have you guys check it out. I think that is going to wrap it up. Just a reminder.
Darian, the only other thing might be to talk about Pastor Frank Mazzapica, our psychologist, who unfortunately was not able to join us. He is the senior pastor at New Covenant Church, and New Covenant was actually going to be our host when we were going to have a live event, but obviously Care Partners has stepped in and filled in the gap when we decided to do it virtually. So we are very, very grateful. But Pastor Mazzapica can be reached through New Covenant Church. And that's in Humble, Texas. Yeah.
Perfect. And another host helper for this conference was Find Houston Senior Care. That's another great online free resource to help with all locating senior resources. So she helped with this conference as well. And so that's just another great resource. So with that, I think we will close it out. Thank you everyone for sending in your questions. Oh, Lisa, would you be able to repeat your email one more time? Oh. 1 second. All right, here we go. Sorry.
LMILLIKEN2021 @gmail.com.
Got it. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you all, panelists. And we have a lot of thank yous coming in. So I think it was a great session. Thank you all so much. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye. Have a blessed day.